The regular season might be coming to an end, but the coaching carousel is just beginning. So let's talk about it for a second. There's a lot to break down here. This is shaping up to be the craziest coaching carousel we have ever seen. Not just because of the jobs that are open, the magnitude, the status of these universities, but the names that are being linked to these jobs as well. Right now, there are 9 Power 4 job openings. There were 10, but Virginia Tech just filled theirs by hiring James Franklin. We'll touch on that in a second. We're not going to touch on all these teams. We will once the positions are filled. We will as more things come into the light, and that very well could happen in the next 2 weeks. I mean, once the regular season really ends, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more names come out, a lot more hiring starting to happen, because you got to get on the recruiting trail. We got to get ready for this stuff. But 9 power jobs, as we mentioned. 4 of those 9 are SEC teams. 2 of them are massive names in LSU and Florida. And like we mentioned, those are big name jobs. They're probably going to garner big name coaches. So the coaches that leave their respective schools to go to LSU or Florida or any of the other jobs we mentioned in a second, that's going to create another job opening. That's going to lead to more names taking those jobs. I mean, that's just why it's the carousel. It's just circular over and over and over again. We just see the cycle of coaches go round and round and round to fill these jobs as we enter the 2026 season. So right now, you pull up the graphic, the teams that are available are LSU, Florida, Auburn, Arkansas. Those are your 4 SEC teams. Then you've got Penn State still open. UCLA is open, both those in the Big Ten. Stanford out in the ACC. Oklahoma State getting rid of Mike Gundy. And then Oregon State, to me, still a power program in my eyes. They are on the market for a new head coach as they're firing Trent Bray. So I want to touch on a few things, actually, before we even dive into some of the big storylines here. The first thing is, especially the big name schools like Penn State, who fired James Franklin after going 104-45 in 12 seasons and being 1 win away from the national championship. So a school like Penn State firing them. A school like LSU getting rid of Brian Kelly, which maybe was justified. One thing I think you have to look at from a coaching standpoint, number one, when it comes to where they want to go coach next, is what's my easiest route? Back in the day, the status of your school used to mean something. And to an extent, it still does, because the bigger your school is, the richer your school is, the better off you're going to be. But back then it was, oh wow, a historic school like Nebraska, a historic school like Penn State, I'm in, done. But now it's like, well, that's great that you're historic. That's great you're this, but what conference are you in? How much money are you going to offer me? This age of NIL, how much money do you have in the budget to give to these players? Look at what James Franklin just did. He was arguably the number 1 coach on the market, even with a lot of other names being thrown out there. Arkansas, we know, was after James Franklin. Clearly, Virginia Tech was after James Franklin. A lot of people were after him. He went to Virginia Tech, and I think he was holding out to see if maybe some other jobs were going to come open, maybe who was going to give him a better offer. At the end of the day, and Virginia Tech, a fantastic program, a historic program, and he's going to do very, very well there. He went there, I think, gets a much easier conference and a much easier route to the playoff. He will have more success long-term at Virginia Tech than he'd have at Arkansas or anybody else in the SEC, maybe anybody else in the Big Ten. The ACC's weak. Who's he have to go up against? Miami every now and then, Clemson every now and then. SMU, I'm not scared of them. So it's not really an elite conference by any means. And he's going to get Virginia Tech back to relevancy very quickly. And his path to winning 9-10 games per year, like he was pretty much doing consistently at Penn State, his path to getting to a conference championship game or a college football playoff is much easier in the ACC than it would be in the SEC or the Big Ten. And that can't be disputed. So I think that was a good move by Franklin. I think it was a fantastic move by Virginia Tech. A+ hire for me. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But another thing that I touch on here is this age in college football when it comes to getting rid of coaches, when it comes to firing them. Look, the 2 big names I want to look at right now are James Franklin and Dabo Swinney, who's not been fired, who's not on the market, but for some he's been linked to jobs. Maybe his time at Clemson has run its course. Those guys this year, very disappointing seasons. I'll admit, I had Penn State and Clemson playing in my national championship game back when the preseason started. That was my national championship. And both those teams have been horribly disappointing. Those coaches didn't forget how to coach. The players that they had, who at the time we thought was some of the best rosters in the country, those players didn't forget how to play. You can't help but wonder how difficult it is for a coach to keep his team focused in this age of NIL in this age of this playoff or bust mentality. I look at Penn State. They were playing fine football, not great. They lose the big game to Oregon that we all hyped up. They lose that game, double overtime? Went off the rails after that. They did not recover from that. That was like their Super Bowl. That was their national championship. They lost it. They still had all their goals still in front of them, but they couldn't rally. I look at Clemson. We hyped up the season opener. Clemson and LSU in Death Valley, and Clemson loses at home. Struggled to move the ball mightily. And it was like everything fell apart after that. It was not a good performance, but in a weak ACC, they had everything left to play for, and they couldn't rally. It's like it just all got derailed. And you can't help but wonder from a player's mindset is if we lose our Super Bowl, our big game that we hype up all off season long or all week long, whatever, we lose that game, how do we get refocused? I've got my money. I don't really care too much if we win or if we lose. It's just a game. I got my money. And as a coach, you have to, guys, we still got everything left to play for. We can still make a championship, conference championship. We can still make the playoff. One game does not derail your entire season. But this new era of football, I do believe, makes it more difficult for coaches nowadays to maintain the team's focus, to maintain quality players, and we know that through the transfer portal, to maintain a good culture, not just for the entire team, within the locker room. This is just, it's a different age than what we saw even 10 years ago. And that's why I think you're going to see a lot more chaos on the coaching carousel, not just this year, but in the future. So rant over on that. It's something to consider. These guys didn't forget how to coach. The players didn't forget how to play. I think it is a mindset shift, a culture shift in the game of college football that is having some of this stuff happen. I truly believe that. Take a look at some of the open jobs. Again, I'm not going to touch on all of them. Let's go quick. Penn State, they fired James Franklin, as we mentioned. Virginia Tech, A+ hire by taking James Franklin. Again, the season for Penn State was derailed after the Oregon loss. What is Penn State going to do now? Who are they going to go after? When you're a school of the caliber of Penn State, LSU, Florida, you need a big name. You don't need some up-and-comer. You don't need some coordinator. You don't need some lifelong position coach. You need someone that knows how to coach football, that's a proven coach, and can come in and continue the success that you expect to have. Who's that going to be for Penn State? So many names being linked to them, right? They wanted Matt Rule from Nebraska. Now you're hearing Clark Lee maybe from Vanderbilt, who's done a phenomenal job. Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri. Now there's this crazy rumor going around that Kalen DeBoer might want out of Alabama, and that DeBoer doesn't want the pressure of Bama anymore, so he might go to Penn State, which would create an opening at Alabama only a few years after Nick Saban retired, only a few years after DeBoer took the job. We don't know what's going to happen. We are these message board geniuses out there, but Penn State's one of the top jobs on the market. All of those coaches, I think, would do well in Happy Valley, but they've got to make sure they get a home run hire. They do not need a massive setback. Franklin brought them back from the dead. He revitalized that program, and they need someone to continue the success and continue the foundation that he laid over the last 12 years. LSU, Brian Kelly needed to go. It was justified. 34-14 in less than 4 seasons. This year, the thing for LSU is, look, they're not expected, at least they think they should, but they don't. They should not win a national championship every year, but they should at least be in contention, especially with a 12-team playoff. There is no excuse for the type of talent that LSU brings in and the money that they have for LSU to fail to be in contention for a 12-team playoff every single year. Brian Kelly, since that 12-team playoff was implemented, last year, has not been in contention either year. Wasn't in contention last year, wasn't in contention this year with 3 losses to Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and a blowout loss at home to Texas A&M. And that's the thing. Death Valley, people don't fear it as much as they used to. And Brian Kelly is to blame for that. He never finished higher than 13th in the college football playoff poll. Final college football playoff poll. Never finished higher than 13th. That's unacceptable by LSU standards. Now the million-dollar question is, will they get Lane Kiffin? That's a whole nother story. Lane Kiffin potentially derailing the Ole Miss football season. As we near the season finale, he has been non-committal on whether he's going to stay with Ole Miss or he's flirting with other jobs, whether that be LSU, which seems to be the front runner, or Florida. Regardless, it would be crazy if Lane Kiffin did leave the job. I was going, LSU to me is a better job than Ole Miss. Granted, I would stay at Ole Miss because the pressure is not as much there as it is in Baton Rouge or Gainesville, but to each their own. That's the home run hire for LSU. If they swing and a miss on Lane Kiffin, or if Lane Kiffin is just playing everybody and is going to end up staying in Oxford, who does LSU turn to? What quality big-name coach did LSU turn to get themselves over the hump and into the 12-team playoff discussion? Florida is the same way. Billy Napier, we all knew it was coming. 22 and 23 in less than 4 seasons. I'm really surprised he didn't get fired earlier than that. I thought the home loss to USF was going to be the nail in the coffin, and maybe it was. The 1-3 start certainly was. They fired him after a win. They beat Mississippi State, but the season was lost at that point. Fired him before a bye week to get ready for Georgia. Again, it was a failed experiment for Florida, who really hasn't had a big hire since Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer did phenomenal things in Gainesville since then. Their hires have been Will Muschamp, Jim McElwain, Dan Mullen, and Billy Napier. Dan Mullen, actually, I thought did very well down in Gainesville. They was fired a little prematurely. Who's Florida going to get? They expect to win. They've really done nothing of relevancy and nothing major since Urban Meyer. They've had some decent seasons, some SEC East crowns, sure, back when they had divisions, but really have done nothing noteworthy since Urban Meyer left. Who are you going to go get? And maybe Florida, you should lower your expectations a little bit and note the guy you hire isn't going to come in and make you a national title contender like you think you are. Because they're just not that. At least not right now. Arkansas, sticking to the SEC, 4 SEC teams currently on the market, and there could be more. There still could be more. Arkansas, they should have fired Sam Pittman after 2023 when they went 4-8. They decided to stick around. They probably should have fired him last year. Even though Arkansas made a bowl game, it was still a lackluster season. Probably should have fired him then. They didn't. Now, in the midst of one of the craziest coaching cycles of all time, they choose to fire Sam Pittman, and Arkansas is one of the most undesirable jobs on the market right now. They are certainly the worst job on the market within the SEC teams. LSU, Florida, Auburn, Arkansas. Arkansas is the worst out of those 4. And I don't have faith in the Arkansas front office, I should say, the Arkansas athletic department, to make a good hire here. They certainly have the money, but they don't have a competent athletic department to make the good hire. And again, who wants to come here? Who wants to come here? It's not really possible to win at Arkansas. Petrino did it in 2010, 2011. That's really about it. They have swung and missed on every other coach. Brett Bielema, Chad Morris, Sam Pittman. Terrible hires. Who are they going to go get? Could it be John Gruden? Could it be John Gruden to Arkansas? Gus Malzahn? Could it be one of the up-and-coming G5 coaches, such as John Summerall at Tulane, who to me is the best Group of 5 hire? If you're going to hire a Group of 5 coach, I'd go after Summerall for sure, and I think he will end up in the SEC. Might not be Arkansas, might be Auburn, but would be a fantastic hire. Could it be Bob Chesney from James Madison, Alex Galesh at USF, Ryan Silverfield at Memphis? But I will say Galesh and Silverfield have struggled these last few weeks, and maybe it would be less desirable for a team after seeing the struggle. Silverfield, I think, would be a terrible, terrible hire for anybody that chooses to take him, for what it's worth. Arkansas's got the money. They've got the money. They've got a great fan base, but they don't have a competent enough athletic department. So unless they've got a rabbit in their hat, they're going to pull some magic, kind of like they did with their basketball hire a few years ago with John Calipari. Unless they're going to pull out a big name hire that no one sees coming, Arkansas fans are going to be very, very unhappy for the foreseeable future. Same could be said for Auburn. They fired Hugh Freeze, 15-19 in less than 3 seasons, 6-16 in SEC play. Never could put it together. This was supposed to be the year, right? You get Jackson Arnold, you get some great wide receivers, a pretty decent defense, and just never came together. And part of that is coaching. I really do believe that. Part of that, I think, is selling the players and getting the players to buy in and actually exert some effort. But a lot of that comes to coaching as well. Now the Tigers looking for their 3rd coach since the end of the 2020 season. They fired Malzahn at the end of 2020. They're now looking for their 3rd coach since then. Not a good look. And we know how bad the boosters can be at Auburn and how much success they expect to have, even though, again, kind of like Florida, there's no reason to think they should have it. Auburn's had a couple flash-in-the-pan type of years every now and then with some generational talent. Same can be said for Florida. Outside of that, they have not proven they're true SEC title or college football playoff contenders. So Auburn, I think, like Florida, needs to lower their expectations a little bit. They're not national title contenders, not in this age of football, not yet. So it'll be interesting to see who they end up going with. And then UCLA, I do want to touch on them. I really like this job here. Fired Deshaun Foster, who I think we all knew was going to fail when he had his first Big Ten Media Day appearance. And that's horrible to say, but it was almost evident that when he got up and took the podium, it was like, wow, UCLA really swung and missed with this guy. It's going to get ugly fast. And that's exactly what happened. Mediocre first year, year 2, in a year we thought they might bounce back, adding Nico Iamaleava and some other talent. He loses his first 3 games by a combined score of 108-43 to Utah, UNLV, and New Mexico. They could stick with Skipper. They could stick with Neuheisel. I mean, either one of those guys would be good hires because UCLA's played some inspired football. since they fired Deshaun Foster. A lot of people think Jed Fish maybe could return to UCLA, leave Washington, take the UCLA job. This is a job that it has potential. It's a very tough place to win. They're in a very tough conference, as we know, in the Big Ten. They essentially are the little brother in LA behind USC. I think USC going to be the king when it comes to the recruiting trail and just the tradition, more so than UCLA. But it is possible to win at UCLA. There is talent in the state of California and the LA area. So whoever takes the job, again, it has the opportunity to do something special here, but it's going to take a special kind of coach. And so it's a really intriguing job to see what happens. The other jobs there, you've got Stanford, you've got Oklahoma State, you've got Oregon State. Those are the power programs. Again, those are going to get some interesting hires. Maybe not big name hires, but maybe Ed Ogeron takes a job at one of those. Oregon State would be the most likely unless he sticks in the SEC as a coordinator. Oklahoma State, they've got huge shoes to fill with Mike Gundy leaving, or firing, I should say. Who do you get to replace such a legend? Stanford, Frank Reich hasn't done a horrible job. Maybe they stick with him and move the interim. Maybe they try to go find someone younger. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this all plays out. But again, this is one of the craziest coaching carousels we've ever seen. I could go on and talk about it on and on and on, and we will. As these positions get filled, we'll break down each hire. We will grade those hires, give you in-depth analysis on those hires. In the meantime, just sit back and relax and watch the chaos unfold. These are the jobs that are open now. Going to be a lot more that open up in the next few weeks, and some major, major coaching changes that we will not see coming. Can guarantee you that. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. Again, the link down in the description below. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.